evening and welcome to the Coon Rapids City Council meeting for Tuesday, December 19th, 2017. If you could please rise and join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vescoviak.
Present.
Councilmember Kicker.
Here.
Councilmember Demmer.
Here.
Councilmember Geisler. Here. Councilmember Jensen.
Here.
Councilmember Wells.
Here.
Mayor Cook.
Here. Thank you. First item on our agenda then is to adopt this evening's agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Geisler.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda with the following change. We want to move numbers 5 and 9 from the consent agenda to the end of new business, so that would be after number 25.
Second.
Motion by Geisler, second by Johnson to adopt the agenda with the noted changes. Any discussion? Councilmember Demmer?
Does it make sense to move 9 and not move 10?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
It'll all be clear later, Grasshopper. All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, the agenda's adopted. First item on our, first item then this evening is oaths of office for the new police officers. Chief Wise.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you. Yes, Mayor, Council, staff, citizens. As Coon Rapids Police Chief, of course, I always like to take a few minutes to introduce our newest police officers as they begin their service to the citizens here in Coon Rapids. We do that because the relationship between the police officers and our residents is very important. It basically forms a foundation of our sense of safety and security for all of us here in Coon Rapids. So tonight I will be introducing, it'll be Stephen Jurdy, who's farthest away from me, and Eric Burns, who's closest to me. So beginning with Stephen. Stephen grew up in and around the West Metro area, mostly around Delano. He graduated from Hillcrest Lutheran Academy and started working a variety of jobs. Along the way, he began working security jobs, which piqued his interest in law enforcement. Simultaneously, he joined the Minnesota Army National Guard and served tours overseas that interrupted his plans for a police career. However, he also found time to complete his education to be ready to come to us. So he subsequently became a detention deputy for Hennepin County and also worked their water patrol. And now he is one of our city's newest police officers. Eric was born in Indiana and grew up in the South Metro area here, where he graduated from Lakeville North High School. He enrolled at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, where he earned a bachelor's degree in environmental science and conservation. After college, Eric worked a number of years in his degree field, addressing energy use and conservation. Eventually, while on that career path, however, Eric realized that he had a passion for police work and wanted to make a dramatic change in his life. And now his goal has been achieved. We hired him as a CSO, or Community Service Officer, in 2016, which is a tough test for a young person getting into this profession. And once he completed his law enforcement education, we now have hired him as a police officer. So we are very happy to have both Stephen and Eric become members of our department. Their first day as patrol officer trainees was back in July, so some time ago. Since that time, they've been trained and evaluated on a daily basis, pushed to excel at meeting the needs of our community. Our training program is designed to be an extremely stressful process. To be certain we've hired the right people, and in Eric and Stephen, we believe we've done just that, which is where we are now. So Stephen and Eric, tonight you are officially graduating from our field training program. Symbolically, we've removed your training badges, as you've now earned your permanent badges number 157 and 158 respectively. Two things about this badge. First, it represents the faith that the many people who had a hand in your selection training have in you. I know you've interacted with a lot of the staff from the beginning until now, and everybody has a vested interest in you succeeding. Secondly, and most importantly, this badge belongs to the citizens of Coon Rapids, and they're entrusting it to you to serve the community to the best of your ability. Never forget that. You have become members of a proud organization of dedicated professionals, and on behalf of that organization, I welcome you into our police department family. Know that your peers and colleagues will do everything they can to help you succeed. So beginning with Stephen, he will be badge number 157. He invited his girlfriend Samantha Bonenblest to pin his badge, so if Samantha wants to come up here. And Mr. Mayor, if you could come down then for the oath also.
Good evening. See, I'm gonna let you hold that with your left hand, and you're gonna raise your right hand. All right, we got this. Stephen Jurdy, right?
Yes.
Got it. I, Stephen Jurdy, do solemnly swear
I, Stephen Jurdy, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and discharge faithfully
and discharge faithfully
the duties of a police officer for the city of Coon Rapids
the duties of a police officer for the city of Coon Rapids
in the county of Anoka
and the county of Anoka
and state of Minnesota
and state of Minnesota
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations.
All right, Mayor and Council, then our second badge pinning will be done by Doug Burns, who is Eric Burns' father, so.
Oops. There you go, left hand, right hand up, all right. I, Eric Burns, do solemnly swear
I, Eric Burns, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and discharge faithfully
and discharge faithfully
the duties of a police officer for the city of Coon Rapids
the duties of a police officer for the city of Coon Rapids
in the county of Anoka
in the county of Anoka
and state of Minnesota
and state of Minnesota
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations. That's some fun stuff. Hopefully we'll have this many people here next month when we do AED training, right, Officer Plotz? Yeah, we're just working on it.
Are we doing that at a meeting?
I think we should.
We should. It's always that way. Beware. What's that? It's kind of fun.
Well, so all we have left is staff and council and a couple from Honda. Okay. All right. Next item on our agenda is to approve the minutes of the December 5th meeting.
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
Motion by Wells, second by Griscoviac to approve the minutes of the December 5th, 2017 meeting. Any discussion or correction? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Come on, there we go. Okay, and then we are on to the consent agenda. The first item on our consent agenda is actually item 3 on this evening's agenda. It's to approve the therapeutic massage enterprise license for My Massage, 12685 Riverdale Boulevard. So we're looking at approving the issuance of a therapeutic massage enterprise license to Ms. Swanson for My Massage located at 12685 Riverdale Boulevard, pending a successful background investigation. Next item is it's just for informational purposes. It's a corporate officer changes for Boston's, Buffalo Wild Wings, and Coon Rapids VFW. Item 5 has been moved to the end of new business, so item 6 is to adopt Resolution 17-133, requesting conveyance of tax forfeit property 9920 Olive Street. The background is on November 21st. The City Council adopted Resolution 17-121, authorizing Anoka County to dispose of or convey various tax forfeited properties. That resolution recommended that one property, a single-family house located at 9920 Olive Street, be withheld from auction to allow the city's Housing and Redevelopment Authority to negotiate acquisition as a scattered site property for redevelopment. Significant code enforcement activity has occurred at this location, and the property displays blighted conditions. Anoka County has requested that the City Council adopt an additional resolution to convey the property with an unrestricted deed to the HRA at a reduced price. Well, that sounds good. Staff will work with Anoka County to convey the property in the coming months, and the HRA will be asked to accept a deed once the terms of the transaction are established. So this will be adopting Resolution 17-133, requesting the conveyance of a tax forfeit property at 9920 Olive Street. Next item on the agenda is number 7, and this is to approve final payment to Northwest Asphalt Incorporated for Project 17-13 trail improvements. These were miscellaneous trail rehabilitation improvements located in Bison Creek, Epiphany Ponds, Marshland, Mercy, Wildwood, Wintercrest, and Woodview Parks, kind of all over the place. The actual project costs were less than the final contract amount due to less work performed than actually bid. So our final is to approve final payment to Northwest Asphalt in the amount of $17,017.66 for Project 17-13 trail improvements. And so that makes the total of that job $317,000. The engineer estimate on that was $442 when we started, so that one ended up well. Item 8 is to adopt Resolution 17-136, amending the 2018 budget for the Fridley Prosecution Agreement. The City of Coon Rapids will provide prosecution services for the City of Fridley beginning in 2018. So we need to do a budget amendment to adjust both revenues and expenditures accordingly. So we are authorizing RS 17-136, amending the 2018 general fund budget for providing prosecution services for the City of Fridley. Item 9, come on. That is the one we moved. Okay, thank you. I'm glad I typed that on there, and I'm glad you additionally said that. Okay, then we're on item 10, which is to concur with the Coon Rapids Mortgage Assistance Foundation Board of Directors recommendations. They have several recommendations here, but we are concurring with the recommendation of the Coon Rapids Mortgage Assistance Foundation Board of Directors and authorizing the mayor and city manager to execute an 8th amendment to the service contract together with any necessary documents with the Center of Energy and Environment that provides an additional $300,000 in funding allocated to the program loan funds, subject to the direction of the CRMAF Executive Committee. The addition of a 1% loan origination fee assessed to the borrower in the home improvement, 2-family rehabilitation, and Home for Generations 2 loan funds, and extension of the service contract to December 31st, 2018. And item 11, the next one on the consent agenda, is to accept easements from Rick Beyer Construction LLC. On December 5th, 2017, council approved a registered land survey to subdivide a residential lot into 2 parcels located at 9940 Iba Street. One of the conditions of approval was that drainage and utility easements shown on the certificate of survey must be recorded. The city must accept the easements prior to recording. So with this, we'll be accepting the easements for drainage and utility purposes from Rick Fire Construction LLC over portions of the property located at 9940 Iva Street Northwest, Coon Rapids, Minnesota. And item 12 is to consider an agreement with the Joint Law Enforcement Council for Fire Record System Manager and adopt Resolution 17-139, amending the 2018 budget. The Joint Law Enforcement Council and the Anoka County Fire Protection Council are setting up a public safety data system, or they've set it up. So all these acronyms, it's just crazy. The Fire Protection Council is a collaboration between the fire protection agencies in Anoka County to reduce costs to taxpayers by providing the economy of scale for projects all of the entities have in common. The Fire Protection Council, heretofore known as the FPC, or from hereforth, how would I say that, Mr. Brody? The FPC operates much the same way for the fire portion of the PSDS, which is Public Safety Data System, as the JLEC, Joint Law Enforcement Council, does for the police portion of the system. Elements of the PSDS project include dispatch software, police and fire record creation and management, evidence management, and training management. To fully support the system, the FPC and JLEC, which has no employees, have contracted with the City of Fridley to provide a PSDS system manager. The system manager is responsible for the overall operation of the system and its many components. All costs for this position are paid for by the JLEC. In February 2016, the JLEC and the City of Coon Rapids agreed upon a 32 hours per week position to assist with the administration of the Public Safety Data System that is hosted within the Police Department. The Joint Law Enforcement and the Fire Protection Council have now requested that the City of Coon Rapids consider hosting a full-time position to assist with the administration of the fire portion of the Public Safety Data Systems. So with this, we will formally enter into the agreement with the Joint Law Enforcement Council, but ultimately, the Fire Protection Council would reimburse the city for 100% of the costs associated with hosting this position, including salary, benefits, and equipment costs. The benefit to the City of Coon Rapids, which has the largest individual fire department in the county, is to have the proposed position be an immediate resource to the city's public safety data system needs.
That's the PSDS.
Sounds A-okay.
So,
Can we vote on this ASAP?
we'll be authorizing an agreement with the Anoka County Joint Law Enforcement Council, JLEC, and adopt Resolution 17-139, amending the 2018 budget for Joint Law Enforcement Council Assistant Manager. Okay, and the last item on our consent agenda is to approve the bid process for the purchase of a portable stage. A bid process has been identified and specifications are being prepared for the potential purchase of a portable stage to be used for city functions, including the 4th of July celebration. A formal bid process is required since it is anticipated that the cost of this stage will be in excess of $100,000. The specifications will be available for review in the purchasing department, and bids will be due on January 9th, 2018. A draft of the bid specifications will be made available at the council meeting. I guess that would be tonight. The 2018 budget does not include funds for the stage. Staff is proposing to share the cost with the Community Strength Foundation, and their portion of the cost will be repaid over a number of years. Therefore, park improvement funds would need to be reallocated for the purchase. Staff will provide a budget reallocation as well as a loan agreement when bids are considered on January 16th, 2018. So with this, we will be approving the bid process for the purchase of the portable stage and authorize the advertisement for bids. And that is the end of the consent agenda.
Move the,
Councilmember Kicker.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Kicker and second by Demmer to approve the consent agenda as presented. Mr. Stemwedel.
Mayor and Council, regarding that last item on the portable stage, one item I should make note of is that the timeline for the bid is fairly aggressive. As we were discussing this last week, we determined that we really did need to go out through a bid process since it did reach that $100,000 threshold. In order to kind of keep this process moving along, we thought we'd try to get it approved tonight in terms of the process and get the bid started. If for some reason, whether it's due to advertising requirements, there are certain statutes that dictate how we have to advertise for these situations. There's potential that that date could push back a little bit. It wouldn't be any sooner. If we can, we'll bring it back for that second council meeting in January. If not, there's a chance it had to be at the first one in February. Just wanted to make note of that in case it does get extended.
And as an aside, I think the next time there's that many acronyms in one thing, you're going to read it.
Yeah.
Any other discussion on the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, just a clarification that it's just for the bid process, it's not approving the
Correct.
purchase.
Yes.
Mayor Council, that is correct. What we would do is we'll bring that back. We also have to bring forward to council an agreement with the Community Strength Foundation for how this relationship would work. But we thought it'd be important to really hone in on the cost and the process for this to get the bid process started tonight, and then we'll move forward.
And just as a quick aside, part of the justification for this is I think it's to protect our staff. When they're setting up the stage for the celebration, I mean, we're very concerned that somebody can end up with a back injury, and we could pay for the stage like that with one back injury, so. Okay, any other discussion? Consent agenda?
Your Honor,
Councilmember
I
Griscoviac?
just want to point out on Resolution 17-133 on, excuse me, not that one, the 17-136, I originally opposed this agreement, but I just wanted to say that I'm pleased with this budget amendment today, that it does appear to be net neutral, and it's very well documented, so I'm okay with that. Another comment I'd like to make is on the Fire Protection Council. I was very pleased that the staff and the police chief did a work session for us so we could fully understand that process, and that's why it's on the consent agenda tonight. Just want to point those two things out.
All right. Is that it then?
That's it.
All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Next on our agenda is item 14, hold a public hearing and consider authorizing application for the 2018 Community Development Block Grant. Mr. Stemwell, anything you want to hit on this before we open up the public hearing?
Mayor, council members, I'll actually defer to Community Development Director Grant Cornelius.
Mr. Cornelius?
Good evening. Mayor and Council, so this item we have discussed previously, to use another acronym, CDBG stands for Community Development Block Grant Program. That's a federally funded program. The city of Coon Rapids receives those funds because we are an entitlement community. Our population is over 50,000, so we receive block grant funds as an entitlement. We do that through an arrangement that we have with Anoka County. The action tonight relates to the 2018 program year, which would start in July of 2018 and then run through the end of 2019. We have historically used these funds for single-family rehab. We did talk about that, as you recall back, I think it was in November, we had a work session where we discussed reallocating some funds from the 2016 program year for another use. We have continued to struggle to find an administrator for our single-family rehab program. So what we anticipate will happen is that we will come back to you in January, like we talked about earlier, really about the future of this program and how we can use the funds and look at some potential options. For purposes of kind of what we need to do tonight, we need to hold the hearing. We are also asking council then to authorize the mayor and city manager to sign the appropriate application and other documents. I think we're recognizing that we're going to have to come back with a potential reallocation unless we can find someone to administer the housing rehab program, and we haven't been successful at doing that. But in order to continue the process and meet the county's deadline, we need to do that tonight. So again, it would be to conduct the public hearing and then authorize the mayor and city manager to sign the application and other documents. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions before we open the public hearing? All right, hearing none, we will open the public hearing. In case anybody has any comments on the proposal for the Community Development Block Grant funds. And seeing nobody here to address us for the Community Development Block Grant funds, we will close the public hearing and look for a motion from council.
Do we need a motion?
Yeah, because we need to authorize the application and authorize the mayor and city manager to execute the program agreement. So B and C yet.
I'll take it.
All right, Councilmember Demmer.
Move to authorize the application for Community Development Block Grant funds for program year 2018 for a housing rehabilitation program, and move to authorize the mayor and city manager to execute a CDBG program agreement together with any other necessary documents with Anoka County regarding the implementation of the 2018 CDBG program.
Second.
Motion by Demmer, second by Geisler. Discussion?
Your Honor?
Councilmember Kraskowiak?
My biggest concern, and Grant addressed it, is the need for, we don't have the service provider. So I don't want us to get in the position where we were last year, at the same time where we had to reallocate those funds back to the county. It just doesn't look right. So hopefully we can get that taken care of, and it's on the way.
May not look right, but it worked well.
It did, it worked out, yeah.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Next item on the agenda is for another public hearing. And this is item 15. And this is regarding the utility franchise fee. Any highlights you want to hit, Mr. Stemwell or Ms. Legg?
Sure, Mayor, Council, I can hit on a couple things. In October of this year, the council introduced this ordinance, which essentially creates a circuit breaker in our franchise fee. Currently, the city of Coon Rapids has a 4% fee on utility rates of electricity and gas and water. In this case, what this program is targeting is what we would sort of consider our super users of electricity. That 4% fee becomes, I guess, a burden at a certain rate, at a certain point. And so what this would do is after $950,000, the tax is 4% up to $950,000, after which it's 0.5% on anything above that, thereby creating that circuit breaker for that program. We anticipate this will affect 2 or 3 businesses in the early years of this program, and then over time there may be some more that fall into that category. If council does adopt this ordinance tonight, we have to notify the utilities once again. They have 60 days to sort of build this into their systems to implement this, and so it would be another couple months yet before this would actually be up and running.
You said it was going to take a while.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions before we open the public hearing? All right, then in the case of revising the utility franchise fee, agenda item 15, we'll open the public hearing. Anybody here to address council regarding the utility franchise fee? The public hearing, seeing none, we're going to close that. And do we have a motion on this one? Yes, we do.
Your Honor, I'll move adoption of ordinance, I believe it's 2202, amending the public utility gross earnings tax for the franchise fee.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Kraskowiak. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. And now we are on old business. Consider planning case 17-33, consider adoption of ordinance 2201, modifying the square footage requirements for the garage and storage space in LDR districts. This is the one that,
I've been waiting all week.
Yeah.
yeah. It's the one Mr. Harlicker did a presentation on last meeting. So I don't know if anybody needs a refresh on this, or are we good?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a
Councilmember
motion
Geisler?
to approve ordinance 2201, amending the 80% of finished floor area requirement and modifying the concrete slab requirement.
Second.
Motion by Geisler, second by Johnson. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Under new business. Planning case 17-24, consider an appeal of the Planning Commission decision regarding revised building elevations for Sutton Honda Gateway Commerce Center. And once we hit the end of this item, we're not going to have anybody left.
Good evening,
Mr.
Mayor
Ehrlicher.
and council members. The item before you tonight is the applicant's appeal of a planning commission decision from their November 16th meeting. Sutton Honda, if you recall, is in Gateway Commerce Center next to the McDonald's. The building site is here, and the property across the street will be used for their inventory. Here's the site plan, just to refresh everybody's mind. This is the building here, front entrance here, elevation here facing Gateway Drive is their drive-through service area. And then they've got the more service uses on this elevation here facing McDonald's, and then here facing Hanson Boulevard. Their floor plan here, the north elevation here is the elevation that faces Gateway Drive. The east elevation faces McDonald's, South Hanson Boulevard, and then the front kind of faces the ramp going on to Highway 10. At their November 16th meeting, we'll go back a little bit farther. On August 17th, the Planning Commission originally approved the site plan for the Honda dealership. Part of that approval was approval of the exterior elevations for the buildings. Following that approval, Honda came back and wanted propose some revised elevations that better fit their design criteria. They presented those revised elevations to the Planning Commission on their November 16th meeting. The Planning Commission compared the revised elevations to the design criteria of the Gateway Commerce Center PUD agreement and made a determination that the revised elevations were not consistent with those PUD design guidelines. Those elevations were in the original packet that was sent out. Those elevations included elimination of the accent panels and much of the stonework around the base of the building. Since the packet went out on Friday, they have submitted further revised building elevations, and that's what was before you tonight that you're seeing there and again here in the PowerPoint presentation. And what I can do is briefly go over the changes from what was originally approved. And essentially what they did is they came back with the latest and greatest elevations. They've got the stonework as was approved by the Planning Commission. They've got the accent panels in the same locations as opposed by the Planning Commission. But what they have done, and you can see it here, the bottom elevations are what were approved by the Planning Commission. The bottom elevations, the accent panels are blue, and what they would like them to be, they changed the colors to white. So essentially that's the biggest, that's the change from what was approved by the Planning Commission. And this is the front elevation. You can see the accent panels on each of the corners are white. The stonework is the same. The north elevation, if you recall, this is the elevation that faces Gateway Drive. Again, the bottom elevations show the blue accent panels and the stonework along the bottom half of the building. The stonework is as what was approved by the Planning Commission, and those accent panels have been changed from blue to white. On south elevation, this is the side that faces Hanson Boulevard. Again, the stonework is the same. The accent panels are in the same locations. They're just white instead of blue.
and the east elevation facing McDonald's, same situation. Accent stone is the same as the approved plan by the Planning Commission. Accent panels in the same locations, white instead of blue. The council tonight can take one of three actions. They can approve the Planning Commission's decision to deny the proposed changes. They can reject the Planning Commission's decision to deny the approved changes, or they can amend the decision by approving the elevations that are being presented tonight and dated 12/18/2017. With that, I'll answer any questions. The applicant's architect is in the audience tonight, and if you've got maybe some questions regarding how this process evolved from Honda's perspective, they'll be able to answer those questions for you.
So, Mr. Harlicker, does the plan, this is a revised plan from what the Planning Commission saw?
Correct.
Does this one meet the standards then? I mean, because we've still got the accent panels, we've just gone from
They
blue to
don't-
white.
they've changed
We've got
colors
the
from
same
blue to
stone
white.
that was
Yep.
approved.
That's the only modification from what Planning Commission determined, that they compared the original design, blue accent panels on the stonework, and felt that it met the design criteria. The only change from that is the panels have changed colors from blue to white.
Mr.
Mayor
Mayor,
Geisler?
after 16 years on planning, for me, the key when we would always look at site plans would be the integral nature of how the site was put together, varying types of materials that look and shape. And to me, what I saw before tonight, that change, and I can totally understand why the Planning Commission denied it, because it doesn't meet that criteria. If I look at what I see here tonight, it meets what they originally approved, with the difference of going from blue to white. It's still a different material. The color, I don't think, is critical. And so I would assume if this would go back to the Planning Commission with blue instead of white, if that's what they'd have saw, it would have been passed. So I would be supportive of just being able to move the process along.
Mayor and council members, the applicant does have material samples of the accent panels, both the blue and the white, as well as the stone that's being proposed.
Okay. But it's the same thing the Planning Commission really saw before,
Yeah.
correct?
But the colors are different.
Yeah.
Well, right, except the white and the blue.
White,
Yeah.
white, and blue, yeah.
Councilmember Demmer?
I think probably just a question for the architect. On the north elevation on the new one, there are these two little dots of blue. And I just wanted to make sure that those were intentionally still blue and we didn't approve something and then we had to come back and found out those were different and someone was going to get mad about it.
Those two little dots are blue. You'll see more clearly in the west and east elevations. They're actually the entry and exit canopies
okay.
for the service drive. And that is part of the Honda
Okay.
program. And they like that to stay blue.
So that blue is from the other elevation. You can see it better. Okay.
It is, yes.
I was wondering
Yeah.
if it was like a little overhanging light or something like that.
No,
but
no,
Okay.
just the edge of the canopy.
Okay, yeah, I didn't have the overhead view, so I couldn't quite see how that,
Yeah.
okay. Just wanted to make sure there wasn't a bug that we have to fix later.
Okay.
But otherwise, at least with this color printer ink, I think the blue looks better. Maybe the white looks better than the blue, so,
Yeah, I mean, I certainly appreciate the Planning Commission, all the work they did on this one, and I know that was a very tough, it was a big decision that night, so it's nice to see this new look again.
Your Honor.
Councilmember
A
Kraskowiak.
clarification to what you just asked. I watched the Planning Commission meeting, and I think one of the commissioners, Commissioner Casey, I think, actually asked if something like this could be brought back to them, and I'm glad we're seeing a variant of that. They didn't have this, you didn't have the stone at that Planning Commission meeting, but I just want to make sure, our Planning Commission has seen that stone at the prior meeting. Is that correct? So to clarify what you asked, is this the exact same stone as the Planning Commission approved originally?
Councilmember, they did see stone. I'll have to defer to the architect if this was the exact same stone that was presented at the meeting.
This is actually the first time stone has been, the actual sample has been presented.
Okay.
Okay.
To be upfront and clear with everything.
Okay.
And this stone has traveled to California, 2 different locations, it's come back. And it has the blessing of Honda, so this is the one that they selected. And it's, not to get into interstate rivalry, this does come from Emporia, Wisconsin.
Shouldn't have said that.
See, and we're more concerned that it has the blessing of our planning commission than Honda, you know.
Correct.
All right, council, what are your wishes here?
Mr. Mayor, I'll try and
Councilmember
take
Geisler?
this. So I would make a motion to amend the decision of the Planning Commission to accept the newly revised site plan drawings dated 12/18/27 that simply changed the accent panels from blue to white. That-
And all other previously approved conditions or.
And all other previously approved conditions. So all we're changing is the color of the accent panels, as noted on the 12/18/17 drawings.
Second.
So we have a motion by Geisler and a second by Demmer. And you're happy with that motion now?
You know, you get the intent.
So I'm not.
If
Okay.
you'd like more, we can add. Okay.
And as a clarification, if we had more time, this could go back to planning and they could actually just sign off on it next month, correct? But we're running into a time crunch?
I'm gonna have to defer to the applicant on timeframes here.
I'm the representative of Mr. Sutton and the Sutton Auto Group. I have with me the representative, Mr. Derek Reeder from the builder, and he's really eager to get these drawings into plan review. And that's one of the critical steps in the path. And if we can get this approval tonight, that'll expedite that process for you. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, as I noted earlier,
Yep.
you know, I totally understand why they rejected it last time because of the change in the stone and there's too many changes. Right now, it's just flipping the color of that accent panel. And the color of the accent panel would not have been a critical decision point from a review. So the decision is that I have different types of materials, not necessarily what the color is. So I'm confident that it would have, if they would have seen
Yep.
this, it would have been fine.
All right. Councilmember Demmer.
I just wanted to say, we do appreciate that you guys did respect the changes, even if they're not exactly what the brand always does. And so we do appreciate you respecting the city's wishes on that. And so I think we all end up in a good spot here. So the way it works for anyone at home is got rejected by the Planning Commission, and rather than sending it back, basically that rejection allowed them time to make the changes and bring it to us, because if they had to appeal it to get it to us to get time to make the changes. And so I think in the end this all works out the right way, and glad to break ground soon.
A lot of dirt over there. Kind of looks like they've already broken ground a little bit, but maybe it's just bringing in dirt. All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and that passes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
That looks like we're up to the Mark Hansen show. Item 18 is to accept the feasibility report and order a public hearing and assessment hearing for street reconstruction project 18-1. And just to keep things interesting, it's going to be 29 different segment streets.
Mr. Mayor and council members, we just wanted to give you a quick update or draw some of the highlights of the 2018 street reconstruction program for projects 18-1 and 18-2 as we proceed to ask you for approval of the feasibility reports and setting the public hearing date. So I have a quick presentation I'm going to go through and note the highlights. So some of the background on the streets that we're proposing for reconstruction next year. All of the streets are rated in generally poor condition. The age ranges are anywhere between 27 and 50 years old. Over the past few months, staff has reviewed the condition of the curb, sidewalk, driveway aprons, storm sewers, sanitary sewers, water mains in all of the areas that we're proposing for reconstruction. The first project is Project 18-1, our proposal. Actually, before I get into that, I'm going to try to generally describe the project location. We are proposing to reconstruct a segment of Cottonwood Street south of 101st Avenue. So that's going to finish off most of the area south of 101st, generally bounded by University Avenue, that part of the city that we've already reconstructed. And then move north of 101st and start at 102nd, work our way all the way up to Egret, and finish off the streets on the east side of Foley that we didn't capture in 2017. Some of the streets also on the west side of Foley, generally in that same area, around 104th Lane and 105th Avenue are proposed to be reconstructed. And then skipping north of Egret Boulevard, periodic streets between Egret, Foley, and Northdale, and then one cul-de-sac north of Northdale, Cottonwood Street, I believe is the name of that. So that would complete our first project. It's approximately 4.7 miles long. And the proposal would be to resurface the road. Most of the curb and gutter, these streets are 50 years old, some of them. Most of the curb and gutter is in pretty bad shape, so 75% or more is likely going to need to be replaced. Very similar to what we had to do in these same streets, these same areas in 2017. We will be repairing any storm sewer catch basins and then any sanitary sewer manholes that need work as well. We're proposing to replace the water main on 103rd Avenue as well as 104th Avenue. And then hydrants and valves will be replaced periodically, essentially everywhere else through the project area. And then we've also noticed through some of the televising work that we've done that storm sewer repairs will be required. We have a large 60-inch diameter concrete pipe that travels and generally on the north side of 103rd Avenue. Lots of infiltration of that pipe. We know we're going to have to make some repairs and do some replacements to that pipe. At a minimum, we'll have to be replacing a lot of the block structures, catch basin structures that are out there. These block structures have a lot of infiltration in them. We're going to replace those with precast catch basins. And the next project is generally on the westerly side of the city, 18-2. Here, the streets are a little bit newer. But the proposal will essentially still be the same. So a description of the project area includes Pheasant Ridge Drive south of Coon Rapids Boulevard. There's a segment of 114th Lane, 115th Avenue, Verdon Street, Uplander Street, and then another segment of 115th Avenue each side of Round Lake Boulevard, kind of in that south part of this project. And then skipping towards the middle area of this project generally lies on the west side of Crooked Lake Boulevard opposite of Morris By School. So kind of the original development area of this neighborhood, the original streets here we're proposing to reconstruct. So that's generally 118th Lane up to 121st Avenue, kind of bounded by Northdale Boulevard and Crooked Lake Boulevard. Then skipping up to the northwesterly part of the city, a segment of Lily Street, Marigold, 129th Avenue, Silverrod Street, 131st Avenue are also proposed to be reconstructed. And the proposal will be similar to the other project where we'll be resurfacing the road, replacing any damaged curb and gutter, driveway panels, storm sewer and sanitary sewer, and then selective valve and hydrant replacements. So generally, all of the water main here is in good condition and is good for a number of years until the next round of street reconstruction. The schedule for all of our projects, on September 19th, we had asked the council for preparation to prepare the feasibility reports and plans. We held open houses for both of these projects on October 10th and 11th and collected feedback from the property owners So tonight, we are asking for acceptance of the feasibility reports and ordering the public hearing, as well as setting the assessment hearing date, which both happen on the same night. We intend to conduct another round of open houses on January 17th and 24th, or January 24th. And then the real important date, February 20th, that is when we're planning to have the public hearing. That's what we're going to ask for permission to do here tonight. It's important that council members, we have a supermajority of council members present for that meeting. These projects, in order to move forward, require a supermajority to vote in favor of them to move forward. And then the next critical date will be the adoption of the assessments on May 1st. And then project construction would take place from May until October. The estimated costs of the project 18-1, the total of the project is estimated at $4.4 million. And then it's going to be paid for from a variety of funds, including street reconstruction, stormwater utility, water system, sanitary sewer funds, and then assessments totaling an estimated approximately $920,000. And then 18-2, similar funding sources with a total estimated cost of $3.2 million. The 2018 assessment rates, $1,909.54 for a single-family home. Every single-family home, whether you're a corner lot, interior lot, pays the same rate. And then duplex, townhomes, twin homes, apartments pay the multifamily rate, which is for next year, $23.87 per front foot. And then commercial properties will be set at $47.73. And then we have an assessment rate for industrial properties. However, we don't have any properties next year that fall into that category. But $62.05 per front foot would be what that rate is if we had any. So for a little background on the assessments, there's a variety of different options that people have to be able to pay those off. These are assessments that are spread over a 10-year period. The first option is to pay the assessment between May 2nd and June 2nd, and that's because May 1st is a date that we're asking for assessment adoption. So property owners can pay an assessment once it's adopted. Can't pay before that. But after that, there's a 30-day period where they can pay it off interest-free. After that, it accrues a modest amount of interest. The second option is to pay between June 3rd and November 15th. Then interest starts accruing. Residents or property owners will have to contact the city in order to find out what that amount is, if they choose to pay during that period of time. And then the third option that people have is to do nothing, and it will automatically just go right onto your taxes starting in 2019. And it would amount to about $200 additional on your property tax bill per year over a 10-year period. Actually, there's a fourth option, and that's a senior citizen or an active military deferral. And that's there's some special circumstances and requirements that need to be followed for people to be able to do that. But if they have questions, they can certainly come to myself or the assessing department to ask how that works. There's an application that needs to be completed, and if there's any questions, certainly we can answer those if you have any. But, just a couple quick updates for our 2018 program. Engineering staff worked throughout the last construction season of 2017. We worked with Stephanie Ring and the cable department each week to identify certain steps in the construction process to get film of, so that we could create 2 videos for people to be able to watch beforehand. So people that are getting the letter at this time of the year or the fall of the year, finding out that their street is going to be reconstructed, you're going to have some concerns and a lot of questions, and that's understandable. So we have some videos that we're really excited about getting posted on our website here in early January. They're all done, just about ready to go, and Stephanie and her staff have done a fantastic job. We've got one video that talks about the frequently asked questions that we always get from people. What's going to happen to my irrigation system? What happens to the landscaping I have behind the curb? where do I park, what happens to my mail, all of those things. That's in one 5-minute video, and then we have another 5-minute video that people can watch that just takes you through step by step by step. So I think it's really good. I'm really excited about it. And then the next update that we have for next year is Tim and I compare notes each year, each fall with other cities about how their programs are going. And one thing that we learned from our friends at the City of Edina is that they do a neighborhood meeting or a park meeting similar to what we do at the Summer in the City right before a project starts. So they go to a neighborhood park and there's the contractor. At that point, the contractor has been hired, the contract has been approved, so we can really talk about the nuts and bolts of the schedule at that point. So we're going to do that. We thought that was a great idea, and we're going to have meetings in parks just to get right out there. It's going to be easier for people to come to us, ask questions, find out more details about the schedule and the steps involved. So those are great things that we're looking forward to in 2018. And lastly, our recommendation is for the council to adopt resolutions accepting the feasibility reports and ordering a public hearing on the improvements to be held on February 20th, and then adopting resolutions declaring costs to be assessed and ordering the preparation of assessment rolls and adopting resolutions setting the assessment hearing date also for February 20th. I'll just make a quick note that there's also Project 18-3, the reconstruction of Riverdale Drive and Northdale Boulevard, which you know about. I believe we had asked, perhaps in the last council meeting, for authorization to prepare that feasibility report. That will be coming in January. We're holding off until we find out a little bit more about the traffic situation around Riverdale Drive and Northdale before we present that to you. But we will be inviting those business owners to the open houses right away in January, so that they'll be able to find out about that project as well. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Councilmember Demmer?
It might be in the FAQ videos, but I know that most people kind of forget that assessments exist until they get assessed, and then they question the entire process about whether assessments are a good policy and why don't their taxes just cover it. And so hopefully there's something in that FAQ to just sort of talk about how our assessment rates are way lower than most other places' assessment rates, and just sort of answer some of those questions. And if not, maybe start preparing something like that, because that seems to come up every time we do them. Sure. And then the second one is the roads that lasted 50 years, that's awesome. The roads that were on the shorter end, do we know if that's just bad luck and we got a bad batch of tar, or if there's something about the traffic or the structure of the road that we should, while we're reconstructing it, do a little differently this time to make those last closer to the 50 years?
So I'll take the first question first. In terms of assessments as they pertain to the videos, I think aside from a footnote, we really don't go into that in too much detail. We try to have more of that information on the website, but I will talk about, or we'll take a look at other ways that we could help get the information out, because I think you're right. People get the notices for the open houses, and some of them attend, most of them don't. And then when they get the public hearing notice, it's official looking, there's a lot of statutory language in it, and then people kind of, oh my goodness, there is an assessment related to this. And it's kind of a shocker, so we'll see what we can do. But as far as the videos, we really tried to focus on construction and the steps involved so that people can see how that works.
I just know that, if your taxes are normally $500 and all of a sudden there's a $2,000 assessment, it can be a shock if you don't know that assessments are a thing. And so getting people to understand why we do them rather than just spreading it out, and just how our rates compare to others, so that they don't feel quite as much like it's a surprise we throw out.
Sure. We are planning to do a presentation at our next open house, the open houses that we do in January. And we typically haven't done that. We try to leave it a little bit more open, allow people to ask questions as possible. But I will include that. Be sure to include that as part of that presentation that we do for the residents that are affected at that time. And then on the second question about why some of the streets are deteriorating faster than some of the original ones, My sense is it has more to do with, as Coon Rapids developed, the better land, the more suitable land for development was developed first. So in the Thompson Park area, one of the first areas, North Thompson Park, those streets are 50 years old and they're in fantastic shape. They're not even in our 5-year street reconstruction program. And that was one of the original developments in Coon Rapids. But it's just pure sand for feet down. And many of these areas on the easterly side of Coon Rapids have that similar soil structure below. And as you progress further away from that area, or those sandier areas of the city, you get into more questionable soils. And then also there was a period of time, kind of in the 80s and the 90s, where some of the material quality just kind of was questionable, I guess. So things, for whatever reason, seemed to deteriorate quicker at that time.
That makes sense. If it was just bad batches, I totally get it, because you don't know that for 20 years. If you do feel it's more that the soil underneath is bad and there's things you can do to spend 10% more and make them last twice as long, obviously it'd be a good conversation to have.
Yeah, I think a lot of the quality that we have in materials nowadays, especially with our asphalt mix designs, is far superior than what we had in the 90s. In fact, there's cities like Maple Grove and Woodbury that have very similar problems. Neighborhoods that were built in the 90s where they're already redoing the streets. Late 90s as well. A lot of it was due to mixed designs and asphalt at the time.
A lot of supervision back there 50 years ago, too. There's a lot of us little boys sitting around watching those scrapers repair those street beds.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember Johnson?
In agenda item 18, I would move adoption of resolution number 18-1, parens 4, accepting feasibility report and ordering a public hearing on improvement for February 20th, 2018. Do you want all of them together, or do you?
Could take them all.
Okay, thanks. I'd also move adoption of resolution number 18-1, parens 10, declaring the cost to be assessed and ordering preparation of the proposed assessment roll, and adoption of resolution 18-1, parens 11, setting an assessment hearing date for February 20, 2018.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Wells. Discussion?
Mayor?
Councilmember Griscoviac?
If I could just get a clarification from Mark. I think there's like 3 ways to do a road. There's full depth reclamation where you basically go down to the ground, the dirt, and you rebuild the road. And then there's what you call mill and overlay, right? You scrape some off and then put a new layer on. And then there's just that coating we put on for maintenance. These, in my understanding, are all full depth. Starting over, we're going to get brand new roads. Is that true?
It's mostly a new road. I would make one caveat to what you said in the explanation to a full depth reclamation. What we don't do with a full depth reclamation is we don't do any subgrade work or rehabilitation. The process involves grinding up asphalt and then several inches into the gravel base below that. And that's going to vary depending on the thickness of asphalt and the thickness of gravel that's there. So it's adjusted in the field. But we blend that together and then we compact it and then we remove any excess. It is a new asphalt pavement surface. It's completely new. But we don't do any subgrade work. So we do that on some projects, but it's only when we have dipping in asphalt or settlement of the road. Of course, if we're replacing the water main or doing any extensive utility work, then we're essentially doing that. But a mill and overlay, we have done that. We do that periodically on our collector streets. We always are very careful when we do that because the life expectancy can range anywhere from 10 to 18 years. So we take pavement cores and we really analyze how the asphalt thicknesses are working together before we do a mill and overlay. So that is grinding off the top surface of asphalt and then just replacing with an equal amount. We did that on Northdale Boulevard, the northwest part of the city. That's a good example of where we did that in 2015. But you see cracks on a mill and overlay the next year. So in 2016, you saw us go out and aggressively address those cracks. And then in 2017, we did a chip seal. And then chip seal is the other thing that you mentioned. And we, on average, do about 20 miles worth of chip sealing every year.
Okay.
And that's a surface treatment.
Right.
And we do the chips because in order to put traffic on it right away, the technology is not far enough along to do a fog seal like you would do on your driveway, or a seal coat like your driveway, to do it on a public street, because you have to have traffic, and we can't limit that. But actually, we're considering doing that in portions of cul-de-sacs, fog seal only. So one of the areas where we have a lot of chip rolling, especially the hot summer days with garbage trucks, cul-de-sac radiuses, knuckles or eyebrows. So we're looking at doing just a fog seal only in a cul-de-sac bulb, where we anticipate we have more ability to work with those residents and kind of keep them from driving on it for a period of time. And I think they would appreciate the aesthetics of that as well. So that's something that we're going to be doing new in 2018 as part of that program.
Okay.
I'm familiar with cul-de-sacs and eyebrows. Did you say knuckles?
Yeah, knuckles and eyebrows.
Knuckles and eyebrows.
You got knuckles, eyebrows, and cul-de-sac bulbs.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second, and all I wanted to throw out there was, it's disappointing that more don't come to the open houses, because there's so much information when you lay out the street for the reconstruction, and there's so much information that they have that you can use. You hear people talk about, there's a low section right here, the water collects here. By the time you get out there, the water's already run off, but it's nice to know if you've got a low section there to deal with.
Yeah, we appreciate a lot of the feedback that we get from people. We always ask for that in the letters that we get. And oftentimes when we're working out there in construction, we can make adjustments when people do tell us about that. But yeah, the open houses are a great opportunity. Of course, calling us anytime is always also an option.
All right, thanks, Mr. Hanson. We have a motion and we have a second. And this is on agenda item 18. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries, and that's 4.7 miles and 29 street segments. Now we are on looking for motions for project 18-2, item number 19.
Your Honor?
Councilmember Kicker?
I make a motion in 18-2 sub 4, accepting feasibility reports and ordering a public hearing on improvement for February 20th, 2018, and the adoption of resolution number 18-2 sub 10, declaring the cost to be assessed and ordering preparations of proposed assessment roll, and the adoption of resolution number 18-2 sub 11, setting an assessment hearing date for February 20th, 2018.
Second.
Motion by Kicker, second by Demmer. Is there any discussion on this one? You must have done a better job, there's no discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. And we are on to item number 20, to consider resolution 17-27 sub 9, awarding a contract for the Hanson Water Tower rehabilitation. Mr. Himmer, after all of the buildup on this, I was pleasantly surprised to see the numbers that you're talking about for that paint job.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, as was I was a little nervous with the budget and where things would land, but with the numbers we received, and we've got a little bit of consulting work that goes into that too, we're going to be anywhere from $50,000 to $60,000 under budget from what was originally estimated. So there will be 2017 funds, $325,000 was budgeted for this. Those have been carried forward to 2018. We really vetted the contractor to make sure we're going to get a good product. We did also agree to move forward with some modest cleaning on the underside. There's a little, I don't want to call it mold necessarily, but some discoloration on the bottom side. And to make sure we get a good product, we added a small alternate for that. And the numbers came back great, so we're recommending approval of the entire project.
Excellent. Council, questions? Motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Geisler?
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 17-27 Sub 9, awarding a contract to McGuire Iron Incorporated in the amount of $224,600 for the Hanson Water Tower rehabilitation.
Second.
Motion by Geisler, second by Wells. Discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. We're on to item 21, to consider resolution 17-137, approving the MnDOT agency agreement for federal participation in construction. And this allows MnDOT to act as the city's agent in accepting federal funds on behalf of the city for any federal aid projects within Coon Rapids. And this agreement contains minor updates to similar versions approved by the City Council in 2003 and 2011. The agreement spells out the city's responsibility related to federal aid transportation projects within the city, and the city is typically not the lead agency on most federal aid projects, but does receive federal funds on partnering projects through joint power agreements with other agencies, primarily Anoka County projects. MnDOT requires that all cities approve this type of agreement to allow for federal aid projects, should there be any in the future. Doesn't seem like we have any choice. All right. 21, so we got a motion or something?
Your Honor,
Councilmember Kicker?
I make a motion that we adopt Resolution 17-137, authorizing city officials to execute and enter into agreement 1029934 with MnDOT for administration of federal funds.
Second.
Motion by Kicker, second by Geisler. Is there any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 22, consider resolution 17-131, approving the year-end budget appropriations. And I can read your little first paragraph there if you'd like. At the close of each year, the general fund budget is compared to year-to-date revenues and expenditures, ensuring that each activity does not exceed budgeted amounts. Net adjustments equal to zero are being recommended. And then you got a bunch of other stuff there, but anything else you want read? Or you want to cover?
Basically, Mayor, what we're doing here is we're just making sure that all the activities are within budget, and we try to move money from one of their activities to another one to make sure everybody stays within budget. And then we carry forward funds, and I know this has been discussed in the past, but we carry forward funds for purchases that either did not need to be made or we weren't ready to make them yet, or there's some reasons, but we still would like to make them. So what we do is basically take the budget from 2017 and move it to the 2018 budget. So, and this is also kind of an update for the end of the year. Of course, it's still very preliminary, but we try to work with the department, see what they're going to spend, and estimate the year-end balance. So that's what all of this does.
Excellent, thank you.
Your Honor.
Councilmember Kicker?
So in that case, anything that's moved forward from 2017 to 2018, we can assume is already funded, correct? That's
It was funded in 2017.
right.
So it was still sitting there. They didn't make the purchase, so we just take that dollar amount and move it forward. And we don't do that for everything, because we discuss all the items. Generally, they're a capital type item that either we didn't feel like we needed to buy it yet, or there were some other circumstances where we didn't buy it yet, but then we'll move that capital forward.
Is that good? Yep. Oh, Councilmember Demmer?
Nobody else had anything? Move to adopt resolution number 17-131, reappropriating funds within the 2017 general fund budget and amending the 2017 and 2018 budgets.
Second.
Motion by Demmer, second by Wells. Discussion?
Mayor,
Councilmember Kraskowiak?
if I could get a clarification, in looking this over, I understand how some money is moved over from 17 to 18 for projects that aren't undertaken in 18 and 17, but will be undertaken in 18. But isn't there also extra, well, unspent funds here because our projects came in under budget? And also, there appears to be what looks to me about $800,000 of more revenue than was anticipated. Is that correct?
Yes. And the reason this is happening in 2017 is because we have had so many building permits. We've had like an additional $1 million in building permit revenue due to the storm. You know, all those roofs and all that siding is just, you know, it's just a huge number of permits. So most of that excess came in terms of an additional revenue from that. So, I mean, this is going to be a good year in terms of the budget. Generally, what we'll do then is we'll recommend that we maintain our 45% fund balance. You know, when we get the final numbers, we'll calculate that we maintain our 45% of the 2018 budget, retain that as the general fund balance, and then we'll recommend that we move that fund to the facility construction fund, which we've used in the past for major building projects or major repairs. If it's a rooftop units or something like that, we put it up in the facility construction fund. So.
Okay, I was just thinking that in looking at that number, it looked like some of the extra revenue came in from property taxes, right?
Not so much property taxes. No, it's mostly building. I mean, I guess I can look at that and see what you're looking at, but it's not really property taxes. As a matter of fact, in terms of property taxes, we're dealing with a lot of these commercial and industrial properties where they have all appealed their values. Remember at the Truth in Taxation how I talked about how residential properties are going up but commercials are not. But there's been a number of appeals, so there's actually been a reduction in some of those values. So that means refunds for some of those commercial industrial properties in terms of property taxes.
Okay. I just think that if we have extra revenue, instead of putting it into a fund where we don't have any 2018 expected expenditures, I'd like to see it put in a fund where maybe we could affect 2019 property taxes.
You know, it's like that facilities fund sort of creates a governor for us. It sort of smooths us off from year to year because we always end up with things that we need and then we don't have to then all of a sudden figure out where to get that money. So I don't know, I've kind of come around to liking that fund. Yeah.
And just from my perspective, I totally understand what both of you are saying. So we still have to maintain tight controls on that fund. It's not to be considered just as a slush fund, and I understand that. But it's, no, you did not. You did not use that word. But I am just saying that we have to be stringent on how we allocate those projects, and that goes through the budget process as well, so.
Okay, yeah. Well, in the years I've been here, I don't recall ever doing something just because we had the money. Yeah, it was because it was determined that it was needed. So. All right. We have a motion in a second, right? I believe so. All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. We're on to item 23. Consider Resolution 17-129, approving the legislation pertaining to TIF District 6-1 and Resolution 17-134 for a public hearing to modify TIF District 6-1. And this all relates to the Port River Walk. And we were successful getting our TIF extension that we needed, and now we just need to adopt this locally.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Move to adopt, take them both at the same time. Resolution 17-129, approving Minnesota Laws 2017 First Special Session, Chapter 1, Article 6, Section 14, and move to adopt Resolution 17-134, calling for a public hearing on February 7th, 2018 on the modification of Tax Increment District 6-1.
Second.
Motion by Demers, second by Geisler. Discussion?
Mayor?
Councilmember Kraskowiak?
Just would like to make a comment that I know that TIF districts do incent builders to do their work. Extending this district, are we creating a situation where we're giving an incentive to not have it done because now they have another 5 years in tax increment financing. Is this slowing us down to getting in development done?
This is kind of a hybrid here. Mr.
Yeah.
Cornelius?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Chris Kopiak. No, I don't think so. The original intent of this legislation when we pursued it was to extend the district because it was originally delayed, by more than 5 years, probably 10 years since we originally created the district. So really what we're trying to do is recapture the increment that we would have otherwise captured had this project started on time. And again, it's not year for year based on when we created the district. So I don't think it creates any incentive for the developer to delay development. It actually allows the city to recapture increment and the investment that we made in the project going back to its beginning.
I just have a question on dates when we were thinking the other one were February 20th and now we're on February 7th. 2 weeks earlier would have been the 6th. So are we going to do it on Wednesday the 7th? And
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Geisler, caucuses occur on the 6th, so we need to move the council meeting to the Wednesday night.
Sounds good. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Good question. All right, any other discussion? We have a motion and a second, right? Yes. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. And Mr. Brown, we don't have to make any more trips to St. Paul for this, huh?
No, it's done.
Nice.
Don't count those chickens.
Well, for this particular one, we don't. Item 24 is to consider resolution 17-135, the Pleasure Creek Drainage District. And the Pleasure Creek Storm Drainage District was created in 1980 to fund storm drainage improvements, including installation of control structures and ditch cleaning in the drainage basin. Parcels included in the district contributed a special tax to help pay bonds issued to fund the project, and the bonds have been paid, and area-wide improvements are not anticipated in the nearer term. Creating and dissolving special taxing districts consist of essentially the same procedures which include identifying the parcels involved, holding a public hearing, and then adopting an ordinance creating the district. Once the district was created, the county assigned a new taxing district number to each parcel within the district, and at this time, it's recommended that the district be dissolved. It is inactive, but it does inhibit adjoining parcels to be combined, which would be helpful in certain cases. So we're looking at setting a date for a public hearing on this for January 16th, 2018 to dissolve the district. In addition, on January 16th, staff will introduce an ordinance to dissolve the district. Okay. So, Ms. Legg, do you have anything on that? Anything else?
Basically, it's just like the Springbrook Drainage District that we just dissolved, and this is another one that's out there, so.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Demmer?
To that end, are there a whole bunch more of these, and we should just get them all at once? Okay.
Whoa!
Then I move to adopt Resolution 17-135, calling for a public hearing on January 16th, 2018 to dissolve Pleasure Creek Storm Drainage District.
Second.
Motion by Demmer, second by Kicker. Any discussion?
Mayor, I don't know if it's discussion, but could we get a map of this district before that public hearing? Could someone just provide a map? I don't know where this district is.
Oh. Yeah, okay.
We'll get you on that, council members, but it's generally the industrial park down in the southeast corner, Evergreen Drive, Springbrook.
Industrial.
It's the creek that comes through the Magnum site and goes through the public works site and then down and out into Springbrook.
Great, thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And we're scheduled for that public hearing, January 26th. Nobody wanted to risk another short answer from Ms. Legg?
Good to hear.
Yeah, it was quick. All right, item 25 is to consider resolution 17-132 approving the 2018 compensation plan for unrepresented employees. Mr. Stemwedel.
Mayor and Council, each year on the second meeting in December after the budget is approved, we bring this forward to Council. Effectively what it does is provide a cost of living increase to the wage scale for the non-represented employees. This increase, which is 3%, matches that, which was approved in the contracts for our 4 union employees. And this plan is consistent with our classification system, which we're required to have under equal pay laws.
Okay. Anybody have any questions, or anyone want to make a motion?
Your Honor,
Councilmember Wells.
move to adopt resolution 17-132, establishing the 2008 compensation plan for unrepresented employees.
Second.
Motion by Wells, second by Johnson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. And now now we're back to agenda item number 5, which is to consider adopting resolution 17-130, accepting the statewide health improvement program or the SHIP grant funding. The Anoka County Community Health and Environmental Services Department has received a statewide health improvement program grant which aims to help Minnesotans live healthier and more active lives. And as part of the SHIP grant action plan, Anoka County included activities associated with implementing policies and practices that promote safe and equitable access to parks. Approving the SHIP letter of agreement with Anoka County would allow the city to be a community partner in the program and to be reimbursed up to $10,000 for authorized program activities. Mr. Stemmel or somebody else want to, is there anything else? Questions? It's like,
I guess maybe I can just chime in. If it's just a grant that we've received in the past, and this will be used for access to parks. So we've gotten this grant for a couple of years now. So it's kind of a continuation of that.
is this the one that does the ped ramps and stuff like that?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, there are a variety of things it can be used for. Again, it's for increasing access to parks. We've done interpretive signage. Things we're considering this round are kind of fix-it stations, ped counting, data collection. Let's see, what are some of the, maybe some mapping and apps that people can use when they're out. We would be able to kind of work with Summer in the Cities, Farmers Market. It certainly would help in the ADA transition plan as well. So we don't have specifics yet, and those things need to go through the county anyway, but that's kind of the plan for how those funds would be utilized.
And it's not a huge chunk of money.
Correct. And Ryan Gunderson will be kind of running that and working with the county on how that works and trying to implementing into some of the other programming items that you may have discussed in work session last week, really just getting better access from the trail system to the parks and getting that into different neighborhoods for people to be able to utilize.
Mr. Hammer, what does it mean, or somebody, what does it mean the city has been invited to be an employer partner in the SHIP? What does that mean? We've been invited to be an employer partner. Anybody know? Mr. Stemmer?
That one I'm not clear on, Mr. Mayor. I wouldn't even venture a guess. But I can certainly find out for you what that means. It sounds to me like they're getting a larger chunk of money and they're distributing smaller pieces to member communities. So we would be working on their behalf to spend their grant dollars. It seems similar to me to a joint powers agreement whereby it has to be free and open. You have to document all of your stuff. So I think we're just become an extension of them by spending their funds. So I did venture a guess there.
Yes, you did. But don't hold you to it, then you're going to get back to us with the right answer.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Geisler.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 17-130, accepting statewide health improvement program for SHIP grant funding.
Motion by Geisler, second by Wells. Yes. Was there any other questions or discussion on this?
I do have some on this, Mr. Mayor. I asked to move this from the consent agenda over to new business just so we could have a little discussion because I didn't know what this was. In first looking at it, it's a $10,000 grant, but if you look at all the attachments, there is a mile long of terms and conditions for this things on what we have to do to be in compliance with this grant. You mentioned that we've been having this grant for 2 or 3 years now. Are all those terms and conditions the same as previous year's terms and conditions? There's stuff in here that says we have to have dedicated staff for this. What does that mean, dedicated staff? There's stuff in here that says up to 10% of the, only 10% of the grant can be used for what they're calling indirect costs. There's ways to submit the invoicing on a monthly basis at a specific time. And then there's just a whole bunch more. I'm just thinking that maybe this $10,000 carrot that we have in front of us may not be worth it. So I'd like to just make sure that everyone's read all those T&Es and making sure we're not just entering into something that the state or the feds want us to do, we can do it ourselves.
Yeah, Councilmember Krasowiak, we have followed similar things, not only with this, but joint powers agreements and other things. And having a dedicated employee, that's not their full-time position, obviously. These are things we're going to be doing anyway. And as I said before, there are certain strict criteria on reporting, accessibility, things of that nature. So whether this was directly to the city or whether we were applying for grants for other federal dollars, we'd probably have the same strings attached. So I see it as a benefit because then they can be spent here in our city versus elsewhere in the county by becoming a partner in that.
And Mayor Council, I would say that, the city has been involved with a number of federal and state level grants over the years and has, I think, become fairly accustomed to the reporting process. For example, the police department each year, you'll see the sort of burn jag grant assistance. And with that comes a lot of these sort of reporting requirements that the federal government would require. And so I think in that respect, it's somewhat familiar territory. I think some of it looks a little scarier than it is in reality. And, from a dedicated employee, whether that's Mr. Himmer or Mr. Gunderson sort of just being the point of contact and then carrying through on the activities and the reporting, again, it's more of a fraction of their time versus consuming large amounts of their daily activities.
I just wouldn't want us to relinquish any of our own control in our city on how we do parks access and the way we make it equitable and everything like that. I mean, we can do things pretty well on our own, right? So,
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Johnson?
I don't see this as doing that we're giving up anything. In fact, we're getting the opportunity to get something with it. I'm somewhat comforted by the fact that it's coming through the Anoka County Community Health and Environmental Services Department, and so it's not as if they're the ones that have the money and are distributing it, and we're taking part in that money. So I don't see it as being something where we're going to run into problems running afoul of some state requirement. In fact, it'd be Anoka County Community Health and Environmental Services Department that might stand a risk of running more afoul of that if we did something wrong, and I'm sure we can work with them on it. I think your concern, though, is somewhat well-founded in the fact that every now and then, and this happened, I think the most recent time I remember it was with the Met Council, we get offers to receive a grant that comes with some strings attached, and then you try to comply with it, and you try to do what they wanted you to do, and then later on there's a discussion about whether they're going to ask to claw some of that back because you didn't dot every I and cross every T, and I think this is materially different than that. I intend to support this.
Okay. Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
no.
And that motion carries. 1 nay. Councilmember Krasowiak. It comes up so rarely, it's like the word's gone. All right. And now we are looking at item 10, which was also removed from the consent agenda, and that's to concur with the Coon Rapids Mortgage Assistance Foundation on their Board of Directors recommendations. And at their annual meeting that was convened, where are their list of officers?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
It's item number 9 that we moved.
Yep.
They look, the titles are similar.
Yeah. That's why I couldn't find it. 9, move to end, oh, look at that, move to end of new business, there we go. All right, so including in the meeting minutes are the following actions. So we are looking to receive the report from the Coon Rapids Mortgage Assistance Foundation Board of Directors. And included in the meeting minutes are the following actions. Denise Clint, Steve Wells, and Alan Hamill were elected to 3-year terms on the Board of Directors. Scott Schulte, Tim Howe, Denise Clint, and Al Hofstad were elected to the offices of President, Vice President, Treasurer, and Secretary respectively. And the statuses of the Coon Rapids Housing Loan Program and the Regenerations Down Payment Assistance Loan funding were considered. The foundation is recommending amendments to the existing service contract for program administration with the Center for Energy and Environmental, extending the term of the contract, and including an increase in compensation for program administration that adds a 1% loan origination fee paid by the borrower. So with this recommendation, we'd be looking at receiving this report with the attached minutes and place it on file with the city. And Article 3, Section 3 of the bylaws of the Coon Rapids Mortgage Assistance Foundation provides the city council with the power of veto over the election of any individual by the board of directors at its annual meeting to serve as a member of the board of directors. If no veto is forthcoming, the elections of Denise Clint, Steve Wells, and Alan Hamill to the board of directors will stand. And that was why I removed this from the consent agenda, so that Councilmember Wells could decide whether he wanted to abstain or vote against it, or was there any questions on this one? Anything else that you wanted to cover on it? Okay. So is the motion just look like?
I think we just move to receive the report.
Move to receive the report.
Unless you have other discussion you want to have about it.
Veto discussion.
Yeah.
I don't, Councilmember Demmer?
I would move to receive the CRMAF Board of Directors report.
Second.
Motion by Demmer and a second by Kicker to receive that report. Any discussion?
So tempting to veto.
Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
That motion carries, 1 abstention. Councilmember Wells. All right. Now, that actually gets us through that part of the agenda, right?
Yep.
And we are on to open mic. And I'm pretty sure we don't have anybody here for open mic tonight. And we don't have any reports on previous open mics, do we? No. And we're on other business. Other business, Councilmember Demmer.
Yes, so the DARE program December graduations just occurred at about half the Coon Rapids middle schools, and number one, good job to the kids who went through that, and number two, really appreciate the Coon Rapids Police Department for the work that they do on that. They embed an officer into the school who gets to make these connections with these 5th graders, and having one of the 5th graders, I got to hear all about all the great things the DARE program taught. For those of us who went to middle school a few decades ago, the DARE program was very different than it is now, and it really focuses on broadly good decision making and having the combination of someone who's another voice, because by this time of the year the kids have heard their teacher's voice for a while, come and talk to the kids, and also just the community building of having a police officer, and Officer Jackson, who I got to listen to give her speech, hey, come up to me and say hi to me when I'm on the street, So the kids all wanted to get their picture taken, and so it was just a great credit to the schools, but also to the police force, and I just wanted to make sure they knew that the community appreciates them doing it.
Excellent. That's great. It's so powerful when the police department is out there doing their community work like that, so the kids have that different relationship with the police. It's awesome. Other business? Mr. Stemwedel.
Mayor and Council, I'd like to just recognize 3 long-term city employees who are retiring this month. So Doug Johnson is an assistant city attorney who's put in over 30 years of service to the city of Coon Rapids, will be retiring just after Christmas. Cheryl Bennett, who's our housing and zoning coordinator, same thing, over 30 years of service to the city, will be retiring at the end of the month. And Jim Kititer, who's a firefighter with about 26 years of experience. And so at the end of the month, nearly 100 years of service to the city walks out the door. They've been wonderful employees, and we'll be sad to see them go. and we wish them well on their new chapter in retirement.
Yeah, boy, that's a lot of institutional knowledge going out the door. Yeah, you're up for it though, you ready? All right, well, thank all of them for their service here. We had a transportation meeting up from Riverdale with the SRF, right? Group. And that was well attended, a lot of the donors, and I guess I just want to make sure that everything is on the table as they try and sort out that traffic flow up there. We want them to consider everything, whether they think the county would like it or not, because we have an advocate at the county that will help us, Mr. Hammer. Okay. And then Officer Plotz was here, and we had spent a long time since he has led Heart Safe training with the council, and he hasn't with this current council. And with the previous council, he did the training, and one of the council members then went off and saved a life with it. So it seems like it would be a good idea for us to get that on our books, and whether we want to do it publicly at a council meeting or at a workshop or how we want to do it, I really would like to see us kick off Heart Safe again and really get it going, because, I mean, it is rolling, but, you know, just kind of recharge. That makes sense? Okay. Anything else? Any other business?
Well, Mr. Mayor, with that tie that you got wearing on over there, I think you probably should wish everyone a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and Happy Holidays.
Absolutely. I think you just did. Well, any motions?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Geisler, second by Demmer to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. We're adjourned.